Welcome back. So, in our previous video, we talked about categories of controls. Now we're going to talk about types of controls. And like I said, do not Google these things. If you Google types of controls, you will see that they Google most answers will mix categories with types. And it's not necessarily wrong, but we want to pass. This video is mainly for you to help you pass your Comptia Security Plus 701 certification. So go with the material, go with this. You can actually research more on the individual types of controls, but refrain, or I would advise you not to Google types of controls, categories of controls. In our previous videos, I showed you that categories has 4 syllables, and so that can help you remember when you see categories, it means categories, right? So you mention all the 4 categories. Now we're going to talk about the types. So know the difference. If you are answering questions, of course, you need to understand these things for work for a bigger purpose. But if you're answering any questions, read the question well and know whether they are talking about categories or they are talking about types. That will help you determine what answers to select, what answer to eliminate, right? All right. So the first one that we are going to talk about is preventive. Preventive. That's we're still talking about types of controls, right? All right. And these are security measures and strategies that organizations put in place to proactively. So remember, when you hear preventive, it means they are working to prevent it, to avoid it. It hasn't happened yet, so they are putting measures in place to avoid it from happening, right? Okay, so that's what most cybersecurity personnel are doing. We want to be ahead of the threat actors. We want to be ahead of any bad adverse event happening. Okay, so they put in place all these strategies to avoid or at least reduce the likelihood of anything happening, of any security incidents happening. They want to prevent they want to prevent unauthorized access to the system. They want to prevent unauthorized access to our data, to our resources, and the primary goal of preventive controls is literally to prevent security threats, security vulnerabilities from being exploited. Threats and vulnerabilities are always there, but we don't want the bad actors to exploit it. We don't want them to say, okay, this company, there's a window here. This is a weakness they have, a vulnerability they have. So let's exploit it. Let's use it. Let's use it as a door to enter their system, right? So we are trying to seal and strengthen and eliminate all our weaknesses. Preventive, all right? And so I hope this makes sense. I'll try not to talk too much. And some of the preventive controls will be firewalls, encryption, and we talked about all these examples in depth in previous videos. So do well to go back and watch them. Make sure you understand every session before moving on, okay? Because we're building on IPS. I spoke very well in intrusion prevention solution. Training and awareness. Training and awareness is huge. It's like the biggest vulnerability, the biggest threat is us humans, right? So we need to know security. We need to know how to work things out. And then we have the detective type of control. All these controls are put under detective, anything that's detecting. And some of these things, don't think too hard on them, right? Just think about English, right? How do you understand detective? If you watch all these Law and Order and all these things, what are they doing? They are poking, they are asking questions, they are trying to see what can be done, what's causing this problem to happen. What they are trying to think like the bad people. They're trying to think about all the people who are doing the killing. And I'm talking about when you watch all these detective movies, right? The same thing comes here. When you hear detective, what comes into mind? It's just controls that help. It's like we have the preventative, right? Now these ones are going to help identify them. The preventive are the ones that we put in place to avoid or reduce. The detective are the ones that we are actively looking, identifying and responding to security incidents. We want to say, okay, this happened. We have logging and monitoring in place. We have something constantly watching and analyzing data that's coming in and going out to see if there's any suspicious activities, if there's any thing that looks like it can cause harm into our system, right? And some of these things are audits and reviews, because if you have audits, there are personnel, cybersecurity personnel, constantly reviewing the others. Some are even overnight, and reviewing incidents and making sure to say that, hey, this is a red flag. Let's look into it. Then they respond to it. They do their research. They know they have protocols in place. This is detective. They are actively looking to identify incidents, adverse incidents, anything that looks like a threat to the system. They want to see it ahead of time and either avoid it, accept it, or mitigate it. Okay, so that's the detective type of controls. Examples are IDS, and these things you kind of, it's common sense sometimes, because IPS has preventive inside, which is intrusion prevention solution. IDS, intrusion detection solution, or software. So, and then audits and review. Audits, you're constantly reviewing your audits, everything that come in. Okay, this person logged in 3 times. Why? This person attempted logging in 4 times. Why did they attempt so many times? So we call the person. I don't think they go that they pay attention to these things, but they call and say, hey, you are one of our finance people, so we want to make sure that you're okay at very odd hours. Why? What's happening? Or someone tried to send large files outside of the company network. They want to send it to a personal email. They tried, because of maybe the company policy, it wasn't working. So they tried a couple of times, or they did actually email it to themselves to their personal email. This will raise a red flag to whoever is in charge of monitoring these things. And then they will contact the person, they will do the investigation, they will make sure that there's no ill activity happening. And then there's training and awareness here. You can best believe training and awareness is a type of control, an example of control for all the types of controls, right? All right, monitoring. So the detecting, you're monitoring, you're watching everything. Vulnerability scanning is one big way. You scan your systems, and someone is in charge of this. You scan your system. You can actually apply for job as a vulnerability analyst, I think, or manager. Or there are people who do just vulnerability management. So you go in there, you do a scan, and then anything that comes out negative, or as a bad impact, or however they call it, then you put them all in, like, maybe an Excel or whatever software you're using, and you kind of follow up. Some of these things are fixed through patching and all these wonderful things they do. So they are constantly watching to see that all the vulnerabilities are patched, or the system is updated, and kind of resolve these vulnerabilities before they are exploited. Corrective. So corrective is all the controls in place to correct any adverse incidents, any vulnerability, any mistake. It's as simple as that. So when you hear incident response is something happened and a team of cybersecurity personnel or IT personnel went in and said, let's do A, B, C to correct these things. an attacker tried to hack into our system last night whilst we were sleeping. This and that controls have to be in place to block him from accessing the network. First, they contain the incidents from spreading to the entire network, and then they try to mitigate it. So if it happened to one person, they want to make sure that once a threat actor is in your machine, your computer, your system, they didn't also access all other systems, right? Once they verify that, okay, they couldn't, they just stayed in your system. I mean, it's still not a good thing, but they are now going to try and contain it in just yours by cutting you from the main system. In this case, they'll probably disable your account, or yes, usually they will disable your account so that nothing else. Then I think they will wipe your system, and in some cases, your IT department will tell you bring your laptop and come for another one, a well protected one, I guess. And so then they will go and do all the magic in the background, renew your laptop so that someone else can use it. But they won't let you go in with your old credentials because it's been compromised. So that's what corrective is. Incident response, patch management, like I said. When they detect it with the detective controls, now they are going to correct it by doing patching and updates where they update your computer. And I'll say this, even for your personal life, when you see these updates, these notifications saying that you should update your computers, please do update them, because most of the time they are fixing bugs or they're putting in more security measures. Maybe something happened and they realize that some security measure policies on your system have been compromised, or they are weak, or they no longer work. Like, passwords used to be 4 letters, not even alphanumeric. Now they are recommending 16 alphanumeric for a strong password. Of course, most people stick with 8 or 12 even, but so things are changing. So be very strong. Just pay attention when you see those updates. Yes, it takes long, so schedule it to do it whilst you are asleep. This way, it doesn't take your screen time. Plus, you need a break on the screen anyway. All right, so patch management, legal action. Sometimes when a breach is caused, sometimes they will probably get your legal team in the midst of it, because the legal team would have to compensate some people if there is a loss, or send them an email, or notify like a whole board. If you work in the healthcare field, you know that when any system is compromised, there is a lot of legal issues, legal activities going on, where lawyers step in to protect our reputation, the company's reputation, and also to protect the people. Some people sue when their information is leaked, right? Or maybe if it's a bank, threat actor will act and get information from their credit card, or God forbid, use their information to do malicious activities. These people can sue the company. So that's when legal team come in. Training and awareness, password resets and revocation. They do that when they see that your account is always being messed up, or it's like you're always the target for these threat actors. They are going to revocate your password, like I said before, and reset it, or disable your account altogether. Deterrent controls. Deterrent. Again, I will say use English. We want to deter you from coming to me. I want to, when you go to any home that has security cameras, Ring doorbell. I mean, these days people break into those things. I've been in cybersecurity for too long to believe in these things. Ring doorbell. Um, in some cases, like I mentioned before, somewhere in Africa, we use walls and barbed wires. And then as these threat actors get more serious, we are now electrifying so that when you touch it, you will be electrocuted. Yes, it's that serious. The thieves in Africa, they're strong and they don't fear anything. But anyway, so we want to deter you. Yes, you haven't come. the first thing we want to do is that when you see our system, you won't try. A lot of people say that Apple cannot be broken into. Of course, it can be broken into. I mean, yeah, these threat actors, they don't sleep. So, but the whole thing is that because of the reputation, because of what has been put in place by Apple products, right? The threat actors sometimes feel like it's not even worth trying to break into Apple, right? Because most regular companies use Windows. They don't do Apple. You understand? So when a actor is going to use, or hackers are going to use their resources in hacking anything, they won't use the what maybe 20% businesses who use Apple products, right? They're going to spend their resources on the 80% who use Windows. So that's what it is. You don't Apple has found a way to have deterred threat actors by one posing as, and they're not posing, they do have very strong security measures. So that is protecting them, right? And so when you physically or you exposedly, like you kind of brag about all the security measures put in place and make it very visible, some threat actors are like, it's not worth it. Let's go to this hospital who has a lot of weaknesses and a lot of vulnerabilities, and let's see if we can exploit it. But for those who have, like, some people one day try, what are some of the other, I don't want to use Apple again. I was going to say Bank of America. You and I know that Bank of America is out there. They've had a few, it's a lot of incidences, not a few. So, but deter means we are deterring you. When you come into our system to try to break into it, you will see that we have multi-factor authentication, we have biometrics, we have, it's sometimes like, and some of these CIA kind of companies and government agencies, they make it so wild. Sometimes where I come from, it's like Shelley, there's nothing, but it's so wild that you're like, what, it will take someone who is very determined to try to break into it. Even some of the banks, people don't just easily, I know you see it in the movies, it looks like it's easy, but people don't easily just rob banks because of all the measures put in place, right? They are deterring you. You walk in, you see that someone is standing there, you look, there are cameras, there are screens, there are lasers, there are things that prevents them, deter them. It means discourage them from stealing from them. So when you enter, they're like, sign, and a guard is standing right there telling you, okay. And then there's this place, there were places, I used to work at a place where they were selling diamonds and jewels. You scan your thumb. I mean, if they will take your blood, they will probably, if they could take your blood, they would probably take your blood, right? And then there are fences, there are barriers. They show all this so that you can physically, some people even put beware of wild dogs, dogs trained to attack. When you see something like this and you're an ordinary thief, you'll go to the next door. You won't worry yourself with this one, right? Some are very, very very strong, and ambitious. So they will probably be like, why did they have a dog there? Let me go in. They must have something good in there, right? So everybody in the way they think. But these things are physical, like in your face kind of, put it that way, in your face kind of controls that are put there to prevent you, to discourage you. So it's different from preventive, right? It's very similar though. So this one is just discouraging you, whether it's preventive, whether it's detective, whether it's corrective. It's just really there to discourage the living day out of you to even try. It's like to make you feel like it's not worth it. Let me go somewhere else, who don't have all these wild things. And then we have compensating controls. These controls are there compensating, right? So use, again, simple English. They are compensating for wherever we lack, right? They are they are there to pick up from the where we are weak, to strengthen our weaknesses. Let me, yeah, I guess you can say that, right? So compensating controls, these are basically like VPN, right? You have all these controls in place, but that doesn't mean your system is strong, or is hacker proof, or is malicious activity safe. No, 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 no. You then put in VPN to say, okay, we have strong password, 2MFA, 2FAs, multi-factor authentication. We have all these all these things in place, but let's put a VPN that, even though you logged in correctly, you logged in with your controls, I mean, with your with your own credentials, you are an employee, so we are allowing you to get into the system. It's fine, but now we are going to see everything that you allowed to get into our system. So these are what the VPNs are supposed to do. We are going to monitor the inflow and outflow of our system. And again, I have a video talking in depth about VPNs and how to set up your own VPN, but this one is for work, so you don't have to worry about it. All right. And then there's multi-factor authentication. There's training and awareness. Look, if you can't remember anything, know that training and awareness is everywhere, but mainly to prevent, right? Training and awareness is to prevent. The reason why it's coming into compensating is because when there is a weakness in the system, training and awareness will let the employees, the human part, the workers, know how to circumvent the ones that we don't have any controls over, right? So if we don't have any controls set in place, then do this. If we don't have these ones put in place, and next publications have a lot of recommendations, HIPAA has a lot of recommendations, and if we cannot implement these things that HIPAA is recommending, maybe HIPAA is recommending, do not let volunteers into your system. All volunteers or contractors must have a full-blown account of your company. But your company decided, no, we can't set them up with full-blown credentials, but we're just going to set them up with this and that, a temporary whatever. This way, you're going to, even though you're not going to set them up as full employees, you're going to have controls that protect volunteers, from exploiting the weaknesses of your company, right? So, or let's say, let me give another example. Maybe NIST is recommending that every employee has multi-factor authentication. Now, you will soon realize that not all software supports multi-factor authentication. So, okay, we cannot do multi-factor authentication for this software, but the company needs it. So if the company needs it and we can't do it, then we are only going to say the software must use SAML, right? That's what we are going to bring in place. If they don't have multi-factor authentication, then they must integrate with the company's identity provider. So that's what you're doing. We don't have this control in place, but we have these three controls to help kind of compensate for the control that we lack. And that's all we are doing as cybersecurity IT personnel, right? We are in there to make sure that the system is safe and conducive for working. And so that doesn't mean we're going to say you don't have multi-factor authentication, so we cannot use you. The company will not function. There are a lot of software that the business units need that don't have all the controls we recommend or we require. So we have compensating controls in place. And another one is cybersecurity insurance. Of course, it's self-explanatory, because we don't have these controls, that means anything adverse event that goes with what this control was preventing can happen to us. So now we have cybersecurity insurance, that if a threat actor succeeds in exploiting any vulnerability or threat, then we have a cybersecurity insurance to compensate, to pay for it, and to transfer the risk to, right? Remember, risk can either be accepted, avoided, or mitigated, right? So we are going to transfer it. That's what we do when we say cybersecurity insurance. And then directive. And again, I should have probably put training and awareness in the beginning, but training and awareness falls under policies and procedures. We give you acceptable use policies, and these are basically directing you, guiding you what to do. Go here, don't go here. Open this door, don't open this door. When you walk in, every visitor must sign in. That's a policy of the company. Anytime you log in onto your computer, make sure your VPN is on. That's an acceptable use. Do not delete emails that look suspicious. Forward it to our IT department. Do not click on only any suspicious links. That's an acceptable use policy. There are policies, there are procedures, there are guidelines in place for organizational wide consumption. These are all helping us towards organizational goals. We want to do business without really um, exposing ourselves so much, right? So these are types of controls.
Guys, I hope
Now,
this video was helpful. Comment and let me know if you have any questions or if you have anything to add to this video. Please come back for our next video where I will be talking about the CIA triad. I'll see you in the next video. Bye.